something transpired deep within the fortified walls of the Vatican just 3 days ago, an event that the world's most powerful billionaires desperately tried to keep hidden. Today, you and I are going to unpack this story together. A highly confidential letter, dispatched directly from the private desk of Pope Leo XIV to the heads of the 10 most powerful global corporations, was leaked to an investigative reporter in Brussels. By sunrise, the document had vanished from every major online platform. By afternoon, high-priced legal teams threatened 2 major financial news networks. By nightfall, the Holy See issued an incredibly vague statement that clarified nothing. Right now, a cabal of executives worth $14 trillion are frantically planning their next move.
Let us be perfectly clear. This is not a narrative about religious dogma, but a battle for absolute power. The figure driving this conflict is Robert Francis Prévost, now known as Pope Leo XIV, who has shattered a century of papal precedent with a single move. Stick with me, because this investigative trail leads into some very dark territory. It all began on April 20th, 2026, less than 11 months after Prévost stepped onto the central balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. He had inherited a church still deeply mourning the loss of Pope Francis, who passed away on April 21st, 2025. Prévost was never the expected candidate to lead the world's 1.4 billion Catholics, nor was he the loudest voice during the secret conclave.
Instead of a high-ranking Vatican diplomat, the cardinals chose an Augustinian friar from Chicago. He was a quiet man who had spent decades ministering in the poorest regions of Peru, intentionally avoiding cameras to work alongside those forgotten by the global economy. When he chose the name Leo XIV, church historians instantly understood the historical parallel. He was invoking Pope Leo XIII, who wrote Rerum Novarum, the landmark 19th-century document defending the rights of the working class against rampant industrial capital. This was no mere symbolic gesture. It was a direct ideological declaration. Now, nearly a year later, the world is witnessing the reality of that promise. The leaked letter, spanning 41 paragraphs, targeted powerful individuals, not faceless corporations. The list of recipients read like a global oligarchy. It included Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Larry Ellison, Jensen Huang, Mark Zuckerberg, Tim Cook, Bernard Arnault, Larry Fink, Mukesh Ambani, and Gautam Adani. The most shocking addition was a powerful sovereign wealth fund director based in Abu Dhabi, whose ties to the Vatican had never been made public. This document did not beg for charitable donations, nor did it politely request a high-level summit. It offered no diplomatic niceties. According to Elise Vandermeersch, the seasoned Brussels journalist who spent 18 years tracking Vatican secrets, the letter opened with a terrifying warning from the biblical book of James. It demanded that the rich weep and howl for their incoming miseries. Then, the Pope named specific names. We must look closely at what this document actually contained, because this is where the narrative shifts from mere theological posturing to a massive structural threat. Leo XIV did not just hide behind ancient scriptures. He presented a meticulously detailed, heavily sourced indictment built over 6 months of highly secretive research. The Vatican had quietly assembled an elite team of prominent economists, theologians, and veteran development officials from institutions like the International Monetary Fund, UNICEF, and the World Bank. This clandestine group operated entirely under the radar as a shadow commission on economic violence. Attached to the letter were concrete, verified findings detailing abusive labor practices at actual factories scattered across the globe. The Shadow Commission pointed out port laborers in Bangladesh who survive on less than $2 a day while loading goods for corporations whose chief executives saw their personal net worth surge by over 40%. The file exposed algorithmic wage suppression, a predatory corporate practice where complex artificial intelligence models predict the absolute lowest wage a desperate worker will accept before quitting, ensuring they are paid nothing more. It documented the massive buyout of fertile farmlands across sub-Saharan Africa by shell companies linked to the billionaires. Most dangerous of all, the report uncovered highly suspicious financial arrangements within 3 specific sovereign nations. In those unnamed countries, corrupt government officials reportedly accepted structured incentive payments to dismantle labor laws just before major development projects were signed. This explosive section sent corporate lawyers into a frenzy. It became clear that the Vatican was not just accusing these billionaires of greed, they were presenting physical evidence of potentially illegal acts. The Holy See had quietly gathered proof of corporate misconduct that could lead to severe criminal prosecution under international law. On the morning of April 21st, exactly 1 year after the passing of Pope Francis, the Brussels journalist Elise van der Meers published a detailed summary of the Vatican letter on her personal publication, throwing the global elite into a panic. The retaliation was instantaneous. Within 4 hours, the journalist's internet service provider was hit with aggressive legal cease and desist demands, while her publishing platform flagged her writing as unverified misinformation. 2 of her primary sources received chilling calls from unknown corporate attorneys. They were warned that leaking these files violated forgotten non-disclosure agreements. One terrified source called van der Meers to warn her that the billionaires were moving faster than anything they had ever witnessed, calling it absolute suppression rather than standard crisis management. Yet, amid this frantic corporate scramble to bury the story, a glaring fact remained overlooked by the mainstream media. The Vatican itself never denied that the letter was authentic. When the Vatican press office finally broke its silence late on April 21st, they offered only a highly polished statement. They noted that the Pope routinely communicates with global figures regarding ethical issues, making it inappropriate to comment further. That is not a denial of the letter's contents. It is a confirmation wrapped in a diplomat suit. This raises a crucial question. What is Pope Leo's ultimate objective? Interestingly, the letter contained no threats or direct ultimatums. It did not demand money under the threat of public exposure. Instead, it proposed something far more terrifying to men who only understand transactional power. The pontiff announced that the global Catholic Church, with all of its parishes, schools, and hospitals, was entering an era of prophetic witness. The Pope declared that this new campaign would manifest as an unrelenting, liturgically active crusade, targeting extreme wealth concentration every single Sunday across every Catholic diocese on earth. We must pause to consider the sheer scale of this threat. This is not a simple lawsuit or a localized street protest that billionaires can easily ignore or outlast. We are talking about over 1,400,000,000 followers being told by their priests week after week that these specific corporate networks destroy human dignity. They will be shown the faces and names of the exact executives responsible. No high-priced corporate defense team can ever neutralize that kind of mass moral pressure. This is not a fleeting public relations crisis that will blow over in a few days. The Vatican is an ancient institution with 2,000 years of experience in applying slow, persistent, and civilizational pressure, led by a pope who is fully prepared to wield it. The panicked reaction from the corporate world has been incredibly revealing. Through various back channels, 3 of the targeted billionaires have already reached out to the Vatican Secretariat of State, begging for private audiences. The Vatican has ignored their pleas. Meanwhile, 2 other executives have suddenly transferred massive, highly publicized donations to Catholic charities, desperate to buy goodwill. Their PR firms are scrambling to broadcast these donations through any financial news outlet that will listen. One billionaire released a highly polished statement praising Pope Leo's commitment to open dialogue, claiming an eagerness to collaborate on human flourishing. Of course, absolutely no one in that executive suite actually believed a single word of it. Behind closed doors, the reality is far more hostile. According to a reliable source in Geneva, at least one of the named corporate leaders privately described Pope Leo as the most dangerous man alive. Let us ponder that description for a moment. This is a 69-year-old friar from Chicago who lives simply, wears plain white robes, and starts his days in quiet prayer. What makes him terrifying to the global elite is not physical force, massive military armies, or the authority to freeze assets. It is his moral power. Today, you and I are going to look beneath the headlines at a quiet war unfolding in the shadows of the Vatican. What makes Pope Leo XIV a threat to the global elite is simple. He possesses a moral authority they cannot buy, commands an ancient infrastructure they cannot dismantle, and reaches an audience they cannot block with algorithms. The new pontiff is operating on a frequency where their wealth holds no sway. Robert Prevost did not arrive at this moment of confrontation by chance. Choosing the name Leo was his first warning, but there were earlier signs. In his first encyclical in September 2025, he used language that startled Vatican observers with its sheer clinical precision, rejecting vague platitudes about poverty. Rather than offering soft, comforting homilies, the Pope directly targeted what he termed systemic extraction, the deliberate engineering of financial structures to funnel wealth from the masses to the select few. This was not presented as a minor flaw, but as the system working exactly as intended. He explicitly condemned three specific tools: stock buybacks, carried interest tax loopholes, and offshore tax havens, declaring them fundamentally incompatible with Christian teachings. While academic economists and financial columnists took note, the public remained largely unaware because dense papal documents rarely make front-page news. But a leaked personal letter changed everything, detailing specific names, precise figures, and what investigative journalist Elise Vandermeersch claims is undeniable evidence. Behind the ancient stone walls of Rome, an uneasy silence has settled over the hierarchy of the Catholic Church. Influential cardinals from wealthy dioceses in the United States, Germany, and Australia, men who spent their entire careers securing massive financial contributions from billionaires, have suddenly gone quiet since the leak. They have not issued defenses, nor have they openly criticized the Pope. In the delicate, unspoken language of Vatican diplomacy, this complete silence speaks volumes. Yet the ranks are breaking elsewhere. Two bishops in the American heartland have released passionate statements of solidarity, while a high-profile cardinal in Manila delivered a powerful homily that amounted to a complete, line-by-line endorsement of the leaked details. Across Latin America, the response has been electric, with Brazil's National Bishops' Conference issuing a pastoral letter that frames the Pope's actions as a prophetic continuation of a 50-year-old struggle. In their eyes, liberation theology did not die. It was merely waiting for its moment. But there is an even deeper dimension to this strategy that mainstream media has completely overlooked, and it might be the most critical piece of the puzzle. According to a follow-up investigation published by Vandermeersch yesterday, these letters were not an isolated gesture. They were part of a highly coordinated offensive. On the exact day the 10 billionaires received their warnings, Pope Leo sent identical, highly diplomatic ultimatums to the heads of state of the Group of 7 nations. At the same time, a mysterious third document was quietly dispatched to a powerful group that Vandermeersch identifies only as major institutional investors, holding massive shares in the targeted conglomerates. Insiders reveal this particular communication was framed as a polite invitation, but carried a heavy unspoken threat. While the journalist refused to print further details, the strategic picture is entirely transparent. The Vatican is systematically working to isolate these billionaires from the global financial system. By forcing the funds and banks backing these empires to calculate the public relations and moral costs of their association, the Pope is rewriting the playbook. Modern history has never seen a pontiff launch such a calculating strike. What we are witnessing is an incredibly sophisticated, multi-front campaign of institutional pressure. It is executed with a precision that suggests either brilliant strategic minds inside the Holy See or highly skilled external advisors working in the shadows. At the center of it is Robert Prevost, a man virtually unknown to the secular world just 18 months ago. Now, you and I are watching a rapidly unfolding crisis where the next 72 hours are absolutely critical. We can expect three potential paths. First, the targeted billionaires might lash out publicly. If they decide silence is too risky, they may launch a direct assault on the Pope, framing their defense as a fight for free enterprise or religious liberty. Internally, a second front is likely to open, as wealthy donors and conservative bishops exert pressure from within the Catholic hierarchy. We will likely see powerful, quiet cardinals suddenly find their voices. Threat-heavy phone calls regarding withheld donations and accusations from well-connected American bishops that Rome is overstepping its bounds. This internal rebellion will start quietly, fought through budget cuts, backroom meetings, and leaked memos, but it will be incredibly intense. Meanwhile, the third path relies on a dynamic the Pope has already set in motion. By forcing these billionaires into a defensive panic, their aggressive legal threats and sudden censorship campaigns have become the story itself, creating an unstoppable narrative. Paradoxically, every attempt to bury the reporting has only made it louder. Each legal threat from high-priced law firms triggers a fresh wave of media coverage, while desperate last-minute philanthropic donations look exactly like what they are: guilt money. In their panic, these tycoons may have handed the Pope the ultimate strategic victory. There is a deep, almost biblical irony at play here. A papal message warning of moral reckoning has provoked the exact defensive, hoarding behavior it set out to condemn. We are watching men who control $14 trillion deploy their vast public relations networks to escape a moral confrontation. Their frantic response is, in itself, the ultimate proof of guilt. But who is the man behind this storm? Those who have worked closely with Robert Prevost over the past 11 months point to a singular, striking trait: an absolute, unshakable stillness. This is not passive weakness, but a calculated, quiet intensity. He refuses to perform for the cameras or display panic under fire. During a recent Vatican press briefing, a reporter noted that the Pope paused for 15 full seconds before addressing a question on global wealth inequality. He was not struggling for words. Rather, he believed the gravity of the issue demanded 15 seconds of solemn reflection. This quiet authority is completely alien to the billionaires he is fighting. They are men who live by speed, transactional deal-making, and rapid execution. In the writings of St. Augustine, a critical question is posed to humanity. What is it that you truly love? This is not about hollow public statements or the monuments built to vanity, but about the deepest desires that actually steer a person's life. Augustine argued that true justice can never exist in a society until its citizens learn to love what is genuinely good. Every move Pope Leo has made, from his chosen name to the specialized commission of economists and the 41 paragraphs of his letter, points directly back to this ancient question. He is not pleading for charity, nor is he asking for simple compliance. He is forcing a reckoning over the soul of global capitalism. This ultimate question of what we truly value is something the ruling class is completely unprepared to answer. They are accustomed to problems they can easily resolve with a checkbook, a powerful legal team, or a polished public relations firm. This moral challenge, however, cannot be bought off. If their true love remains the relentless accumulation of wealth and power, the Church's prophetic challenge will echo from pulpits worldwide, Sunday after Sunday. As of today, April 23, 2026, the pressure is mounting. Elise Vandermeersch has signaled to her subscribers that her next investigative piece will expose the precise, high-stakes demands sent to the world's largest institutional investors. Still refusing to speak, two of the targeted billionaires have maintained a tense silence, likely scrambling to find a viable public relations defense. Meanwhile, the Holy See has kept its gates closed to further press inquiries since its brief statement on April 21st. Behind closed doors, Pope Leo celebrated his daily Mass inside the quiet chapel of the Santa Marta Guesthouse, completely away from the media's glare. No cameras were permitted, and no official declarations followed, only a deep, contemplative silence. Yet outside these walls, a massive shift has begun. From parishes in Lagos to Lima, priests are crafting sermons aligned with Rome, and seminary professors are actively rewriting their social doctrines. Inside classrooms globally, educators are already debating how to integrate this new economic doctrine into their lesson plans. The machinery of the Catholic Church is incredibly massive. It transitions slowly, but once those gears begin to turn, stopping them is nearly impossible. As you and I watch this unfold, the gap between the fury of the wealthy and the silence of Rome grows wider, suggesting a permanent shift has already occurred. Finally, we must look at a chilling detail that has gone largely ignored. The warnings were dispatched on April 20, 2026. Pope Francis passed away exactly 1 year prior on April 21, 2025. While Rome calls it a coincidence, the message is unmistakable. A detail like this does not happen by accident, not in an ancient system that has spent centuries measuring the precise spiritual weight of calendars, dates, and timing. For 11 months, Pope Leo XIV remained silent, watching the inner machinery of the Vatican and learning what this historic moment demanded. Then, on the exact anniversary of the death of the man who shaped modern Catholic aspirations, he took action. He sent 41 paragraphs of hard evidence to the 10 wealthiest men on the planet, demanding they account for their immense riches. This is either the spark of a profound global revolution or a futile, dramatic gesture destined to be buried in the archives and outlasted by the forces of raw power. Whether this high-stakes gambit succeeds depends on if the vast Catholic bureaucracy falls in line behind the pontiff, and whether 1,400,000,000 believers understand what is truly being asked of them. Everything hinges on if Wall Street takes this third papal warning seriously, and what Vandermeersch's next article actually reveals. You and I are watching a rare moment in history where oligarchs controlling $14 trillion are visibly panicking. This is not about religion. It is about the architecture of global power and who has the courage to challenge it. Keep your eyes on this channel, because her next report drops in 48 hours, and we will be the first to break down the leaked names and numbers. Stay close.